Is party role actually important in Pathfinder 2nd Edition? Absolutely. Maybe more here than in most games. PF2E is a team game with razor-sharp math and a 3-action economy that rewards coordination. No single character can cover every angle of combat, exploration, problem-solving, and social play at once. Your class, ancestry feats, spells, and gear naturally point you towards certain jobs. That's not a weakness, it's the design. Your strengths shine brighter because your teammates cover your gaps, and everyone gets moments to be the reason the adventure moves forward. Crucially, Pathfinder 2nd Edition doesn't pigeonhole you into one lane forever. Roles are flexible and often situational. The champion who anchors a choke point as a defender can step into face during parley. The ranger who's a consistent striker is also your scout between fights. Wizards and kineticists swing between controller and blaster depending on the map and the immunities. Thanks to archetype, skill feats, consumables, and retraining, you can widen your toolkit over time, and with variants like free archetype, you can deliberately pick up a second lane without losing your core. Think of roles as your party's Venn diagram. You don't need 9 specialists to cover 9 needs. A tight 4-person group can still hit most beats because Pathfinder 2nd Edition gives you tools, scrolls, wands for missing utility, talismans and alchemical items for problem encounters, rituals for edge cases, and teamwork that converts one player's setup into another player's payoff. Even if a role is unfilled, you're often a spell, dedication, or piece of gear away from covering it when it really matters. Here's the other big shift. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, when a role takes the spotlight, can change round to round. Your defender buys space, your controller reshapes the map, your striker closes in on the priority target, your blaster trims the action economy, your support makes everyone faster and better, your healer prevents lost turns, your scout wins the fight before it starts, your face wins without rolling initiative, and your solver turns we can't into we can. Knowing who carries the moment and feeding them the resources to do it is how you turn close calls into clean wins. I have taken a look at my own table experiences, along with reviewing thoughts and points of view from various other creators, game masters, and players, reviewed where there was overlap, and settled in on there being 9 different roles. 6 combat focused in Defender, Striker, Blaster, Controller, Support, and Healer. 2 exploration focuses, Scout and Solver, and 1 social role, the Face. To keep things concrete, we'll evaluate each role with a simple rubric we'll use throughout this video, the 3Q test. What the 3Q system measures. The 3Q system asks 3 simple questions at this exact level of play and turns the answers into a clean out of 6-star rating for each party role. Q1, access, 0 to 2 points. Do you have the tools? Q2, uptime, 0 to 2 points. How often can you use them? And Q3, coverage, 0 to 2 points. How broadly do they apply across enemies, defenses, maps, and situations? We'll keep the math separate, but think of the 3 Qs as, can you do the thing? How reliably can you keep doing it? And how often does it actually matter? So, question 1, access. Do you have the core tools now? Q1 is the starter pistol. It measures whether your build already has the essentials for a role at this level. No theory crafting, no future promises, just what's in your kit today. For a striker, access is things like having a real proficiency edge, the accuracy boosters that push you above baseline, and your always on damage riders, i.e. precision, rage, stances. For a defender, it's credible AC and effective hit point benchmarkers, reactions or auras that actually protect allies, and the ability to control space, like an attack of opportunity or forced movement. Blasters need level appropriate damage scaling and templates they can point at clustered foes. Controllers need conditions and terrain tools that actually swing fights, not just cute inconveniences. Support and healer flavors of access focus on team impact right now. A support build with team-wide bonuses or action economy grants that are online at this tier scores higher than a build that's 1 feet away. A healer with a true death prevention button stabilization with reach, shield blocking math that matters, timely condition removal, etc. Has access, one that only does out of combat patch-ups doesn't. Scouts need stealth and perception ranks and a hazard toolkit in hand. Faces need feats, ranks, or magics that convert into real leverage in conversation. Solvers need recall knowledge breath, utility spells or rituals, counteract tools, or crafting that actually solves problems the party will face at this level. Scoring Q1 is blunt by design. A 0 is you don't have the tools, or they're gated behind hard prerequisites you haven't met yet. 1 point is you have some of it, but it's partial, situational, or fragile, i.e. only with a single stance, item, spell slot, etc. And a full 2 points is you have the full level appropriate core online and ready to go. Access doesn't judge frequency or breadth yet. That's Q2 and Q3. Q1 just certifies that your build can enter the arena for that role today. For Q2, we have uptime. How often can you press the button? Uptime measures repeatability, action economy, round-to-round fuel, and day-long stamina. Imagine filming a combat montage. Q2 asks how many frames you're actually doing the roll thing versus waiting for your cooldowns. For strikers, uptime comes from action compression, stances, multi-attack plans that keep DPR high after map, riders that don't fall off, and the ability to maintain pressure every round. For defenders, it's whether your ally protection reactions fire frequently, your damage shaving, shield blocks survive multiple hits, and can you keep holding space instead of burning out after one flashy turn. Blasters care a lot about how many impactful bursts they can deliver per encounter and per day, not just high-end damage once, but repeatable, slot-efficient choices. Heightened workhorses, efficient blasts, and reliable wands and staves. Controllers score uptime with their tools are reliable, no save riders, sustain friendly effects, or one-turn tempo advantages, rather than coin flip gambles. Supports earn big Q2 when their auras, team-wide bonuses, and action economy grants tick every round without strangling their own turns. Healers climb with a always-on triage, reach heals, reaction stabilizes, effective burst heals, and with pools that don't vanish after a single encounter. Exploration roles have their own rhythm. Scouts need features that keep them sneaky and safe across multiple rooms, not just one hallway, bonuses that stack with standard tactics and movements that don't cost the rest of the party. Faces push Q2 with failure mitigation and conversation to conversation stamina, rerolls, safety nets, broad applicability of spells and feats. Solvers show uptime through evergreen utility, rituals that aren't a resource trap, crafting and consumables you can actually stock, counteract tools that don't exhaust the whole day. Q2 scores a 0, that's a one and done, it's got a long cooldown, or action patterns that collapse under pressure. For 1 point, you can do it often enough, but with some constraints. Positions, actions, slots, tight triggers, that sort of thing. And to get the full 2 points, you threaten your role every round in every encounter with minimal drop-off. If Q1 gets you in the door, Q2 decides whether you can stay on the dance floor. And lastly, Q3, coverage. How often does it actually matter? Coverage is the reality check. It asks, across the enemies, defenses, maps, and situations that you'll actually see at this level, how frequently does your tool set convert into impact? Think breadth plus adaptability. A striker with only precision damage and a single damage type risks cratering into immunity/resistance walls. Ones with flexible damage sources, debuff setups, or ways to ignore concealment and elevation issues reaches more targets more often. For defenders, coverage is about board shapes and enemy behaviors. Can you protect who needs protecting on most maps? Do your zones, reactions, and force movement matter against skirmishers, flyers, and brutes? Blasters score on save diversity. Can you target more than one saving throw? Template variety in bursts, lines, cones for different rooms, and friendly safe options that let you fire when your allies are in the splash zone. Controllers chase coverage by mixing condition ladders, stun, prone, slowed, terrain edits, and force movements that work on different sizes, speeds, and save profiles. Supports climb when their bonuses are team-wide, stack cleanly with common buffs, and reach allies where they actually stand. Small radius, narrow tags, or effects that clash with standard party tech crater coverage. Healers gain points with condition removal breath, so curses, poisons, diseases, stupefied, clumsy, etc. And tools that prevent death across many enemy damage profiles, not just physical hits. Scouts want movement modes, climbing, speed, fly access, and senses that keep them relevant in fog, darkness, or vertical maps. Faces get mileage from broad social approaches and contracts/reputations that open doors outside of a single culture or context. Solvers thrive with travel or mobility, counteract reaches across traditions, and utility that answers common adventuring problems, not just edge case puzzles. So for Q3 scores, you get 0 points when you have a narrow lane or are easily countered, i.e. wrong map, wrong defense, common immunities, things like that. To get 1 point, you're going to have stuff that works a lot of the time, but with notable blind spots that the party must cover. And to get your full 2 points, you have wide, adaptable, resilient to all kind of encounters at this level. Coverage doesn't make you hit harder, it just makes you matter more often. So how do we score? For each role, we evaluate its factors and weigh them by that role's priorities. Each factor also leans towards Q1, Q2, Q3 differently. For example, Striker, accuracy and proficiency edge is a big slice of the pie and emphasizes access and uptime way more than coverage. Coverage, being, different damage types or defenses, is a smaller slice, but leans heavily on Q3. So we score Q1, Q2, and Q3 for each factor, 0 to 2 points each at this level. We're going to apply the role's weight factors and the Q emphasis within that factor. The sum of Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 to get those 0 to 6 stars for that role at this level. Everything you see in the role card comes from that blend. Big weights move the needle more. Q emphasis decides which Qs matter for that factor. So that's the 3Q lens. Access gets you online, uptime keeps you firing, and coverage makes you relevant across the day. Different roles value those levels differently, so we weigh the factors accordingly. Then roll them all up into a clear, level-specific, out of 6-star snapshot that you can trust at the table. Now that we've examined the 3 Qs, let's take a deeper look at each of the roles, starting with the Defender. The Defender. The first role that we're looking at today leans hard into combat, and it's the one we call the Defender. This is the character who plants their feet between the party and the problem, holding the line, soaking pressure, and shaping where the fight actually happens. Defenders typically favor melee, boast solid hit points, and aim for excellent defenses, high AC, damage resistances, reliable temporary hit points, or features that blunt or redirect incoming blows. Many also carry tools that protect others, reactions that reduce damage, shields that turn lethal hits into shrugs, auras that discourage enemies from slipping past, or movement tricks that pull threats off of your squishier allies. You'll see lots of ways to avoid damage in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, but the Defender is defined by taking the hit that matters and still being standing. And also just making sure your friends are too. When you picture a Defender, the obvious picks spring to mind. The steel-clad stalwart with a shield raised, the bruiser who shrugs off punishment, the dedicated bodyguard who intercepts strikes meant for somebody else. Those are classics for a reason. But you can go well beyond the usual suspects. A shapeshifter who turns it into a wall of muscle, a summoner who lets their companion or eidolon body block a choke point, a support caster who layers shield, mirror image, or stone skin to wade into the scrum, or even a battlefield tactician who trips, shoves, or corrals enemies so they have to deal with you. All of these can defend in their own way. Endurance and mitigation are the headline stats here, and that's where our Defender overlaps with the video game idea of a tank. Still, it's not just about raw AC or a mountain of hit points, it's about repeatable ways to cut damage and control space. Because that's the heart of it. Being a defender is less please hit me and more I decide where you can go and who you can hurt. You create safe zones for allies and danger zones for enemies. You occupy doorways, turn narrow halls into kill boxes, and punish anyone who tries to slip past with reactions. You peel threats off your healer, body block for your striker, and buy time for your controller setup. A great defender doesn't merely survive, they dictate positioning. So how do we score the defender? Each factor shows its share of the defender's score and its weighting across the 3 Qs. Q1, access, how quickly or easily can you bring it online. Q2, the uptime, how reliably you can keep it running. And Q3, coverage, how broadly does it apply. So the 5 factors of the defender are AC/effective hit point benchmarks. This is going to take up 30% of the total score, weighted across the 3 Qs at 60, 30, and 10, with access having the 60%, uptime having the 30, and coverage having the 10. Our second factor is ally protection. This is going to include reactions and auras. This makes up 25% of the total score, being broken into 30%, 50%, and 20% weighting across Qs 1, 2, and 3, with uptime having the most at 50%. Zone control, our attacks of opportunity and forced movement, is our next factor. This takes up 20% of the total score, with the weighting spread being 30, 40, and 30. Our fourth factor is damage shaving. This is damage reduction and shield blocks. This makes up 20% of the total score, spread across 30%, 50%, and 20%. Lastly, we have survivability tools. These are increasing saves or recovery. This makes up 5% of the total score, being weighted 40, 40, and 20. But put simply, the defender's headline is soaks hits, protects allies, controls space. If you're tuning a build for this role, aim your choices at those 5 dials. Then sanity check them against the 3 Qs. The access. Do my defenses, reactions, and control turn on fast with minimal setup? Uptime. Can I maintain them every round without draining key resources? And coverage. Do they work on more than one ally, more than one foe, and more than one kind of map or damage type? If you can answer yes across access, uptime, and coverage, and keep those numbers honest with AC/EHP, protection, control, damage shaving, you're not just a body in the doorway, you're the reason the doorway holds. And that's a defender. The next role we're going to look at is the striker, your steady finisher. This isn't about flashy one-off nukes, it's about reliable, repeatable single target pressure that turns momentum into knockouts. Think of the duelist who always lands the telling blow, the rogue who turns any flank into consistent precision, the ranger who latches onto priority targets and never lets go, or the magus or gunslinger whose action economy is tuned so tight that every turn hums. Lots of parties can stall and control. The striker is who actually closes the book on the enemies that matter. Being a striker isn't just big numbers sometimes though. It's access to accuracy, uptime on DPR, and coverage against typical defenses, so your plan works more than just on one kind of foe. It's sticking to targets through terrain and tactics, trading clean actions for clean hits, and converting ally setup into steady, expectation-beating damage every round. So how do we score the striker? Again, Q1 is access, Q2 is uptime, Q3 is coverage. Our first factor is accuracy/proficiency edge. This is weighted the highest at 40%, with a weighted spread of 50, 40, 10 across Qs 1, 2, and 3. Access is the most important of our accuracy and proficiency edge. Can we start the fight being accurate? Do we have proficiency, itemization, flanking access? Our second factor is sustained DPR versus baseline. This is 30% of our score, weighted at 20, 70, and 10, with uptime being the highest at 70%, with turnover DPR staying high
This is reload cadence, multiple attack penalty workarounds, stance upkeep, etc. Our third factor is action compression. This is going to be 15%, weighted at 10, 80, and 10. Again, uptime is the key one here. Is our rotation staying tight? Are we maintaining our buffs? Are our reloads embedded? Are our step strike loops intact? Rider damage, this is precision, rage, etc. Makes up 10% of the score, weighted 30, 40, 30 across the 3 Qs. Our last is coverage, types, defenses. This is 5% of the total score, weighted 10, 30, and 60. When doing your striker self-check, look at access. Do I start accurate with minimal setup? Look at uptime. Can I sustain DPR every round without my rotation falling apart? And look at coverage. Do I have answers when AC spikes or resistances start to show up? The striker answers who falls first. But when the room fills up, precision starts to give way to pressure. From scalpel to shockwave, let's talk the blaster. The blaster is your shockwave specialist, the one who turns we're outnumbered into we're doing just fine. Where the striker is a scalpel, the blaster is a pressure washer, clearing minions, chopping action economy, and softening bosses with collateral damage. Cones that sweep hallways, lines that lance through ranks, bursts that turn a cluster into cinders. Blasters don't just hit hard, they hit many, and that can win fights faster than any single target crit ever will. Great blasters read the room, literally. They spot the clump, the choke point, the doorway, the staircase. They pick the right template and damage type, thread it around allies, and repeat it often enough that the battlefield never recovers. And when the maps or immunities say, not yet, the smart blaster sets up the next turn, nudging enemies into tighter formations, baiting movement, or holding a template until the defender corrals the perfect cluster. So, how do we score the blaster? Our first factor is damage scaling and efficiency. This makes up 30%, spread across 20, 50, and 30 weighted. Our second factor is save diversity. This makes up 20%, weighted 40, 20, and 40. Our third factor is AoE templates known. This makes up 20%, weighted 40, 20, 40. Our fourth factor is friendly safe options. This makes up 15%, weighted 30, 40, 30. And our last factor is day-long endurance, making up 15%, weighted 10, 80, 10. When doing your blaster self-check, you're looking at access. Can I place a meaningful ally safe template right now without 3 actions of setup? You're looking at uptime. Do I have enough charges, slots, loops to keep AoE pressure every fight, not just the boss? And you're looking at coverage. Do I have multiple shapes, damage types, and save targets so maps and immunities don't just brick my turn? The bottom line, a good blaster deletes actions by deleting bodies. Read the clump, choose the template, and keep the pressure on. Your party will feel the fight get easier the moment the room gets less cluttered. Our next role is a controller. And a great controller doesn't just slow a monster. They change the terms of the encounter. Their best turns feel like the enemy's plan quietly fell apart. Maybe the brute that was supposed to bulldoze your backline spends its round stunned and drooling. Maybe the caster who would have erased your defender with a save or suck spell is immobilized outside the line of effect. Or maybe the battlefield itself betrays the other side. A wall cleaves their formation. A zone taxes every step they take. And a timely shove snaps a flank and dumps a skirmisher into the kill lane. The controller's scoreboard isn't big damage numbers, it's enemy turns that don't happen or happen poorly. That reliability begins with credible checks and clean opens. You want to act early before the alpha strike lands, and you want your save DCs or attack rolls to be serious enough that a single cast can tilt tempo. But it's not about landing one banger, it's about maintaining pressure without burning your whole engine. Sustained zones, no save riders, on-enter effects, and efficient recasts let you keep the screws tight while you set up the next constraint. Think of geometry as much as status. On many maps, a 5-foot choke and a wall placed 3 squares to the left are stronger than any stun, because they change how many enemies can act meaningfully at once. Good controllers are also matchup readers. They know when a foe's best save makes a favorite condition a bad bet. They pivot to a different save, an attack roll debuff, or a terrain that doesn't care about immunities. They scan the room, ceilings, doors, stairs, pits, elevations, places where forced movement multiplies value. And they communicate. Defender, hold this door. Blaster, I'll herd to your cone. Striker, once I slow the boss, you stick it. When you're doing it right, your teammates' turns feel easier and more accurate because the fight is happening on your map to your rhythm against your constraints. Keep a quiet mantra in mind. Open fast, sustain smart, cover broadly. If you can impose a meaningful limit now and keep it rolling next, and have alternatives when the layout or stat block disagrees, you're not just participating, you're piloting, and that's control. So, how do we score the controller? High impact conditions is our first factor, that makes up 30%, weighted at 40, 30, 30. Our second factor is DC scaling and accuracy. This is 25%, weighted 60, 30, 10. Terrain or forced movement is our third factor, making up 20%, weighted 30, 30, 40. Reliability, so no saves or sustaining, is 15% and is weighted 20, 60, 20. And our final factor is initiative and tempo. This makes up 10%, weighted 70, 20, 10. When we're doing our 3Q self-check, for access, we're asking, can I impose a fight warping condition or wall right now? For uptime, we're going, can I keep pressure without draining all of my resources? And for coverage, we're looking at, will my tools matter on this map against these saves? The next party role is support. Support is the party's amplifier. When they're humming, everyone plays like they just leveled up. Attacks connect more often, saves hold under pressure, positioning becomes effortless, and action economy tilts in your favor. The magic isn't a single flashy moment, it's a steady team-wide lift that compresses difficulty across a whole dungeon. Think accuracy and save auras that simply exist, mobility boosts that erase wasted actions, and subtle math edges that turn a striker's almost into dead, a controller's close into stuck, and a defender's shrug into nothing. Then there's the adrenaline hit, granted actions, extra strides to chase, extra strikes to capitalize, quicken casts that chain into control. These swing rounds outright, because that power is spiky. Great supports build for frequency, not just peak. If you can only grant an extra action once per adventuring day, it's a highlight reel. If you can do it every fight, that's a roll. On the other axis, defensive boons keep the machine running while variance spikes. A reaction that flattens a crit, a resist aura that cuts incoming numbers, temporary hit points that buys a precious turn for the healer to triage, a support who prevents a KO just created the biggest damage increase possible. That ally still getting a turn. You need to ask yourself, can I add value right now without a 3-step dance? Keep that value every round and help most of the table on most maps. If the answer is yes, you're not just helping, you're headlining the team's best turns. So how do we score the support? Team-wide bonuses makes up 30%, weighted 30, 40, 30. Action economy grants make up 20%, weighted 20, 60, 20. Defensive boons are the third factor, making up 20%, weighted 30, 40, 30. Uptime is our fourth factor at 15%, weighted 10, 40, 50. And our last factor is stacking friendliness, making up 10%, weighted 20, 30, 50. When doing your support self-check, for access, you're asking, can I grant a meaningful buff or action this round? For uptime, you're asking, can I keep these bonuses rolling every round? And for coverage, you're going, will it help most allies in most fights? Next up, we're looking at the healer. Now, healers don't win combats by filling bars. They win by preventing lost turns. A downed ally contributes 0 damage, 0 control, 0 support. Your craft is making sure that moment either never arrives or ends immediately. This starts with prevention. Off-turn stabilizes, intercept heals, and damage flattening actions lets you catch a fail if it happens, converting "we're losing a character" into "we're still 5 strong." Timing beats totals. A small heal now can be more valuable than a bigger heal later if it preserves a full ally turn and forces the enemy to pay again. Next is Burst, the clutch stabilize or big heal that turns a wipe into a comeback. But Burst shouldn't be your only identity. The quiet heroics of condition clears, ending paralysis, stupefaction, persistent damage, poison, anything that would have erased a character's round even at full hit points. Great healers invest in easy access to those answers and keep them broad enough that oddball enemies don't break your kit. Meanwhile, you're always thinking about the marathon, not the sprint. Slot economy, focus refuels, channel management, scroll caches. Your endurance plan determines whether the party reaches the boss with resources and composure or limps in on empty fumes. Out of combat, you're the expedition's quartermaster. Efficient treat wound cycles mean more spell slots for control and damage during fights. Smart triage and proactive mitigations save actions later. Resistance before the fire gauntlet. A protective chant before the ambush. A status buffer before the Hag's lair. And you're a communicator. We can't take another fight like that. Or we need 10 more minutes now, or we won't have the juice later. Your measure isn't how high you can get the green health bars to go. It's how consistently your teammates keep taking turns while the enemy's plans fail to convert. If you can prevent the KO now, do it again later, and reach clear what this dungeon throws at you, you're more than a medic, you're the party's warranty. So how do we score the healer? Our first factor is death prevention, making up 30%, weighted across the 3 Qs at 40, 40, and 20. Next is burst stability and healing, making up 25%, weighted 30, 50, 20. Condition removal breath comes in at third, with 20%, weighted 40, 20, 40. Our fourth factor is our resource pools and endurance, making up 15% of the score, weighted 10, 70, 20. And our final factor is treat wounds efficiency. This is 10%. This is 10, 70, 20. When doing your healer self-check, ask the questions for access. Can I prevent a knockout this turn? For uptime, do I have enough tools to keep people upright all day? And for coverage, can I clear these conditions and reach those allies? Moving on to the scout. The scout is your eyes, ears, and insurance policy. These victories happen before the initiative. The patrol you avoided that saved 3 spell slots, the ambush you turned into your own ambush, the lethal hallway you mapped so the defender could lead you through it like a dance. It starts with believable stealth and perception, numbers high enough that sneaking and spotting are routine, not just coin flips. You see trouble, chart routes, and return without dragging the party into a fight they didn't choose. Information is survival, but so is tooling. The traps and hazards you detect must also be disarmed or bypassed, and that means kits, proficiencies, and patience to work alone without triggering alarms. Good scouts pack answers to senses that ruin lesser stealth. Scent, tremor cess, blind scent, echo stone, features that blunt detection transform recon from maybe to reliable. The map itself is your ally. Movement modes, climbing lanes, swimming competence, vertical tricks, quiet mobility, turn dead ends into highways and give you angles that enemies never check. The payoff is tempo. A scout who wins the information war wins initiative. You start fights on your terms. Controllers acting first, defenders already gripping a choke point, the striker already flanking. And when you can't avoid danger, you mitigate it, counting enemies, marking elites, identifying auras, calling resistances so the blaster doesn't fire fire at fire elementals. Your presence is felt in how easy the dungeon feels. Fewer alarms, fewer wasted resources, fewer surprises. teammates have the right tools because you told them what to pack. The hard room becomes a solved puzzle because you mapped it and picked the door that made geometry your friend. If you can gather intel now without being seen, keep doing it hour after hour, and make it work across this terrain against these senses, you're not just a sneaky character, you're the party's advantage. So how do we score the scout? Stealth and perception ranks make up 30%. This is weighted 50, 30, 20 across the 3 Qs. Our second factor is traps and hazard toolkit, making up 25%, weighted at 40, 30, 30. Avoid detection features is next, making up 20%, weighted 30, 40, 30. Our fourth factor is movement modes, making up 15%, weighted 30, 30, 40. And our final factor is initiative edges. This is 10% and weighted 60, 30, 10. Our scout self-check questions for access are: can I gather intel safely right now? For uptime, can I keep scouting without burning resources or risking discovery? And for coverage, do my tools beat these senses on this terrain? Next up is the face. The face is the party's voice and leverage. They turn walls into doors, prices into favors, and factions into resources. Success here isn't a lucky nat 20. It's a drumbeat of consistent wins because the fundamentals are right. The skills are trained high, the feats open better lines, the magic is surgical and ethical, and the fallbacks catch stumbles before they spiral. With that foundation, you walk into courts, guild halls, caravans, and camps with the confidence that you can move people towards trust, towards truth, towards yes. You start by owning the basics. Multiple social skills at meaningful proficiency means you aren't one note. You can flatter, frighten, finesse, or perform as the scene demands. Social feats accelerate everything. Better first impressions, faster information gathering, advantage after successful opening, momentum that makes every subsequent ask easier. Magic is a scalpel, not a crutch. The right spell or sense nudge reveals a lie, softens a bias, or manufactures impeccable documentation, but you use it in ways that preserve relationships instead of just poisoning the well. Alright, so here's the reality check. Not every roll lands the way we want it to. That's where failure mitigation keeps deals alive. Rerolls, rescue reactions, second chance frameworks that turn no's into maybes without escalating to calling the guards. And the quiet superpower here is your network. Contacts and reputations convert cold opens into warm introductions. A name drop here, a favor repaid there, and suddenly the impossible audience becomes likely. The face is also the team's strategist. You read the room, assign supporting roles, let the scholar talk here, the defender plays the veteran, and decide when the best persuasion is letting somebody else speak. Your measure isn't just how clever the speech was, it's whether the party skipped a fight, cut a price, learned the truth early, or walked into the dungeon with an ally instead of a rival. If you can influence now, keep goodwill throughout a long scene of day, or adapt to this culture and these constraints, you're not just charming, you're catalytic. So how do we score the face? Social skill ranks is our first factor, making up 30%, weighted 60, 20, 20 across the 3 Qs. Social feats is our next factor at 20%, weighted 40, 30, 30. Social magic comes in third with 20%, weighted 40, 30, 30. Failure mitigation is our fourth factor at 20%, weighted 20, 50, 30. And contacts and reputation make up 10%, weighted 30, 20, 50. When doing your self-check as the face, you need to ask yourself, in access, can I move this NPC's attitude right now? For uptime, do I have enough mitigations to handle a rough scene? And for coverage, does my kit work in courts, alleys, and outposts alike? Coming up to our last role, we have the Solver. The Solver is the party's key ring, the person who keeps turning we can't into we can. Their wins look like smooth progress. The puzzle door opens, the curse zone goes quiet, The anti-magic trap fizzles. The marsh crossing takes minutes instead of hours. It begins with recall knowledge breadth. Many trained skills and relevant lores at real bonuses so you can identify creatures, hazards, and phenomena quickly, translating fact into tactics. Don't cluster, bring silver, target reflex, etc. That alone raises the party's floor. Fewer wasted turns, fewer bad damage types, fewer nasty surprises. Then comes utility. The humble miracles that erase friction. Light and dark, air and water, silence and sound, senses and surveillance, language and locks. The more of these that you can deploy on time, the more the adventure feels like a series of choices, not doors slammed in your face. Because opposition pushes back, you need to be able to counteract and dispel. Suppressing enemy zones, stripping buffs, canceling charms, or sniping a key cast off the stack so your defender's effort isn't undone by a single spell. Preparation multiplies impact. Crafting and consumables turns tomorrow's problems into today's shopping list. Antidotes, talismans, scrolls, tools that anyone can use under pressure, stretching the whole team's turn. And geography stops being a villain when you bring travel and mobility. Early climb swim answers, then short hops, flights, and path optimizations that preserve resources and control timing. The solver also acts as a project manager, sequencing rests, setting thresholds, we don't move without X, and communicating failure trees so choices stay informed. Your measure is momentum. Did the party avoid costly detours? Did your knowledge turn a deadly room into a solved puzzle? Did your counterspell save a run? If you can present the right answer now, repeat answers all day, and swap to alternative answers when this environment or these foes disagree, you're not just clever, you're the engine that lets everyone else shine. So how do we score the solver? Recall knowledge breadth makes up 25%, weighted 50, 20, 30. Utility spells and rituals is 25%, weighted 40, 30, 30. Our third factor is counteract and dispels, making up 20%, weighted 40, 30, 30. Crafting and consumables comes in fourth at 15% with 30, 40, 30. And our final factor is travel and mobility, coming in at 15%, weighted 30, 30, 40. When looking at access, the solver has to ask themselves, do I have the right tool ready before we hit the wall? For uptime, they have to ask, can I solve problems repeatably without stalling progress? And for coverage, do my solutions work across this environment and these foes? So now that we have spent all this time going over the 3Q system and the different party roles, let's take a look at an example level 5 character so you can see how this actually presents itself. Our example today is our Minotaur Guardian build that we recently released. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. As a quick recap, the Iron Bulwark has one primary goal: be the party's defender, the unmovable wall. So we will be able to see at level 5 how well they perform in that role, as well as other roles they might be able to fulfill. Since this is an example, we're only going to review the defender role in depth, but you can see the chart that shows how they rank in other roles as well. As discussed earlier, the defender has 5 different factors that make up its total score in AC/effective hit points, ally protect, zone control, damage shave, and survivability. Let's take a look at how well our build does in each section. AC/EHP makes up 30% of the score, with 60 of that weighted towards access, 30 weighted towards uptime, and 10 weighted towards coverage. For access, the Iron Bulwark ranks a full 2 points, with Armored Courage providing temporary hit points for a single action, Guardian's Armor granting physical resistance as a always-on resistance, and Shield Block being a free feat that only costs a reaction. For uptime, the Iron Bulwark again rates a full 2 points, with Defensive Advance able to be used every round, Intercept Attack and Shield Block being available as reactions every round, and Guardian's Armor once again being mentioned as always on. For coverage, however, the Iron Bulwark only gets a partial score of 1, While true that taunt allows for redirection of an enemy's focus and can be used every round, at this stage the build has no coverage to stop or protect against AoE effects, so it's unable to use its toolkit in all situations. Next, ally protection makes up 25% of the score, with 30% of that weighted towards access, 50% towards uptime, and 20% on coverage. For access, the bulwark rates a half score of 1 point, taunt and shielding taunt, while not directly auras or reactions, indirect protection for the entire group, but otherwise, we don't have anything else as a shield blocking for allies that isn't available to us yet at this point. For uptime, 2 full points are awarded as taunt and shielding taunt are available every round. For coverage, once again, only 1 point is awarded because Sheltering Slab gives a great boost to protection to ourselves in hallways, allowing for better positioning to protect allies, but overall protection coverage is still pretty limited. Up next is Zone Control, which makes up 20% of the score, with 30% weighted towards access, 40% towards uptime, and 30% on coverage. The Iron Bulwark scores 2 points across the board in Zone Control, taunts, reactions, and high strength for shoving dominate access, all of which are available round after round for perfect uptime, and the ability to hold down any choke point needed along with shoving tripping rounds out our coverage. Following up Zone Control is Damage Shaving, which makes up 20% of the score, with 30% weighted towards access, 50% towards uptime, and 20% on coverage. Our build scores 2 points in access, with Shield Block and Reactive Shield always been available every round. 2 points in uptime, as the Hefty Hauler feat ensures that we can carry extra shields around in case we don't have time to repair ours and we need extras. And we're only getting 1 point in coverage because while we can provide damage shaving to ourselves fairly often, we still don't have the kit to cover many allies yet. Lastly, we have survivability tools, which makes up 5% of our score, with 40% weighted towards access, 40% towards uptime, and 20% on coverage. We gain 2 points in access as we have armored coverage, granting us temp hit points as a single action, battle medicine, healing hit points as a single action, and tough to kill and die hard feats always active. We gain 1 point of uptime as both of armored courage and battle medicine are once per hour uses, and we get no points for coverage as they only help with the dying condition or emergency healing, not against any direct threats. All of this put together gives the Iron Bulwark a 5 out of 6 stars as a defender. Without going into the specifics of the other roles, you can see the Iron Bulwark has a decent secondary role in healer with 3 out of 6 stars, but is pretty lacking in the rest of the categories. This helps highlight the importance of Pathfinder 2e being a game about teams and teamwork, not just solo builds.
As we wrap up, here's the big PF2E takeaway. Party roles are a team's language, not their prison. Most characters naturally excel at 1 or 2 lanes, but Pathfinder 2e's chassis, its ancestries, skill feats, archetype, consumables, and the 3-action economy let you widen your lane as you grow. Your defender might be your party's face in a tense parlay. Your striker can double as the scout between fights. Casters pivot from controller to blaster to support round to round. Roles help you decide who carries the moment so everyone else can line up to make that choice land. Don't sweat perfect coverage. A tight 3 or 4 person group can still touch many of the roles as long as they're using their tools smartly. Treat wounds and battle medicine for sustain, scrolls and wands for missing utility, talismans and alchemy for odd encounters, and the right archetype that adds just enough kit to cover a gap when it matters. No dedicated healer, champions, bards, alchemists, and anyone with medicine and a plan can keep the wheels on. No controller, terrain, force movement, and a couple of well-chosen effects can still shape a map. Roles are here to guide decisions, not veto characters. For GMs, don't force a checklist. Read the table's toolkit and tune adventures so strengths shine and weaknesses feel interesting, not punishing. If a party lacks broad condition removal, seed a few curatives in the treasure. If recon is thin, telegraph hazards so clever play can substitute for raw bonuses. When a role is missing, prefer player-facing solutions over NPC chaperones, giving the party the keys they need so they can drive the bus. And for players, build what excites you. Then ask, which moments does my character own? Our 3Q rubric keeps that honest. Access. Can I turn my roll on now? Uptime. Can I keep it going without burning out? Coverage. Does it work across common targets, defenses, maps, and days? Going forward, nearly every Ctrl+Alt+Build character build will feature this party roll snapshot and explore at levels 5, 10, 15, and 20 what role the build is strongest in, its secondary roles, and what it's just not meant to do. This will help show the progression and strengths of the builds without having to rely on damage per round as the marker for every build. If this helped you get a better understanding of party dynamics within Pathfinder 2nd Edition, hit subscribe and tell me your favorite role and your spiciest 4-character lineup in the comments. If our exploration of the Iron Bulwark intrigued you, you can see the entire build right over there. Until next time, control the dice, alt the meta, build the legend. I've been Nicholas, your virtual GM. Thanks for watching.